is the past president of United Nations Women's...
Australia.
Thank you very much, I've got a mental block there.
UN.
And she will speak on ending poverty for women and children, which is the theme for International Women's Day this year. Thank you, Sue. Put your hands together, please.
Thank you, Effie. Thank you, Effie, and thank you for the welcome here. It's always a pleasure to come and be with good friends through the United Nations Association New South Wales. So thank you for the invitation. And as I speak to you, I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to Auntie Joan, to any other elders who may be present, and to elders past, present and future. On this International Women's Day, we think especially of the women who have been the custodians of this land since time immemorial. I'm just wondering if you're feeling a bit confused about the number of themes you're hearing for International Women's Day. So perhaps I can clarify. The Australian National Committee for UN Women chooses a theme for International Women's Day each year. It doesn't quite align with the UN theme always, because we need to choose it sort of like last year in time to be able to do our promotions for our significant, large International Women's Day events which happen across Australia each year. So the Australian National Committee takes upon itself, with the sanction of the UN, they're quite happy for us to do this, to choose a theme especially relevant to Australia, but also to our region, the Asia Pacific region, because that is where that's the main focus for our fundraising and the program work that we support being done by UN Women. The commemoration of International Women's Day has become a rallying point to build support for women's rights and participation in the political and economic arenas, and that's where a lot of our work is focused. Increasingly, it's a time to reflect on progress made, to call for change, and to celebrate acts of courage and determination by ordinary women who have played an extraordinary role in the history of their countries and communities, and how inspiring it was to hear the stories from the Grameen Bank. Thank you, Duncan, very much for that. It just ties in so well with the theme that we're thinking about today. So the theme for the Australian National Committee has chosen this year is ending poverty for women and girls through economic empowerment. And today I just wanted, in the short time that I've got, to bring an international focus to the issues which contribute to why so many women and girls are living in poverty today. The main issues, and Valerie touched on these in her talk too, are the lack of access to education, early and forced marriages, unequal share of income and paid work, and unequal access to land. The work of UN Women and the money that's been raised by the Australian National Committee has helped and will continue to assist women in countries such as, and I'll just give you a couple of instances of some of the work of UN Women. In Rwanda, to date, UN Women has supported 2,000 poor and vulnerable women who have their own bank accounts and work in cooperatives weaving and selling baskets, and the baskets are now sold internationally. I do encourage you to go to the UN Women website as well as the UN Women Australia website. There are some fantastic images. I'm so sorry, I wasn't aware we were in the theaterette today, so I didn't bring a PowerPoint, but there are some great images of these Rwandan baskets, peace baskets as they're called. In Syria, women who have been displaced and are now living in refugee camps are particularly vulnerable to violence and restrictions to education and employment. UN Women is delivering training in safe spaces where women learn tailoring and computer literacy. Over 300 women have attended the workshops and become breadwinners for their families. And in Afghanistan, UN Women has funded an IT centre that teaches women English, computer skills, and facilitates job placements for graduates. It's also working with the government to lower barriers and challenges that impede the implementation of the International Women's Bill of Rights. But perhaps just a couple of stories from our region, from Fiji. where so much work that is supported by the Australian National Committee is going on. Marketplaces in Fiji are dominated by women vendors whose cash incomes contribute a significant part of the income of poor households. Therefore, they're key sites, the markets are key sites for improving women's economic empowerment and for national poverty reduction. So a story from Fiji. The Siva Talay has been selling flowers at the Suva Municipal Market for 10 years. One of the main problems she faced was rainy days. There was no proper shelter for the vendors to sit and sell, and the customers, she said, did not want to stand and buy flowers in the rain. She said, "My family depends on my income to survive daily, and that's why even during rainy days, I still have to come and sell flowers." In April last year, UN Women partnered with Suva City Council to construct an overhead roof to protect the women vendors from bad weather while trading in the flower section. These initiatives are part of the UN Women's Market for Change program. It aims to ensure that marketplaces are safe, inclusive and non-discriminatory in order to promote gender equality and women's empowerment. The project focuses on 4 key areas: building and supporting organised groups to advocate for the rights and interests of the women vendors, increasing economic security, engaging with local governments, and improving physical infrastructure. In 2013, UN Women has supported 8 local councils with small infrastructure programs in Fiji. All of these improvements help local women vendors participate more productively in economic activities. These small infrastructure grants were made possible through the funding of approximately $140,000 from fundraising by the Australian National Committee for UN Women. Today we've heard the powerful statement, thank you Pamela, from the UN Secretary General, and that resonates with us. And he talks about some important gains. On International Women's Day, the new Executive Director of UN Women, Phumzile Mlambo Nguka, said, "The response we need is bigger and bolder actions, so that women's equality can be a game changer for women and girls and for humanity. Together we can choose to be liberators or risk being footnotes in the footnotes in history. Let us not be footnotes, let us be the liberators." That bold action is to embed women's rights, women's empowerment and gender equality in all we do, now and beyond 2015, and provide measurements and modalities that will give us significant impact that is also transformative. Addressing a high-level event at the General Assembly last Friday, Ms Mlambo Nguka said, in reference to the post-2015 agenda, that's post-MDGs, that it was encouraging to see strong and growing support from Member States for addressing gender equality, women's rights and women's empowerment as a priority in the Sustainable Development Goals. These are the goals that it is hoped that the UN Member States will adopt following the end of the MDGs. UN Women supports these calls and stands ready to work with Member States on the development and inclusion of a standalone goal on gender equality, with 3 parts to that goal. The first is freedom from violence for women, which has often been called the missing MDG. The second is equality in capabilities, opportunities and resources, which means addressing the invisible burden of unpaid care work and ensuring equal access to assets and resources such as education and equal pay and working conditions. And the third area is equality in decision making in public and private institutions, from the kitchen table to the cabinet table, from the peace table to the boardroom table. I'd like to end today with the words of the first Executive Director of UN Women, Michelle Bachelet, who said, "Today there is wide acknowledgement around the globe that women's empowerment is essential to social and economic sustainable development. All of us deserve the same fair chance to contribute to our societies and live up to our potential. All nations have much to gain from women's participation, and this includes gains not just for women, but also for men and their children. Gains in the economy, gains in health and well-being, and in brighter prospects for the future. All over the world, winds of change are blowing. We see rising calls for equality and justice. At UN Women, we have learned that advancing women's empowerment and equality requires working on many fronts at once. So, let us end poverty for women and girls, once and for all. We all have a role to play in lifting women out of poverty, and we must challenge the way things are and help to change the lives of women and girls for the better. You may like to pick up a card from the desk out the front as you leave and think about whether you would like to make a donation to the work of UN Women. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.